on this computer. Very well. Okay. Thank you very much for your help getting that set up. It is 10:01, September 29th, 2017. This is the class face-to-face meeting of ITSE 2309. Today we are in module, we're in chapter 4, which is the join. I believe that is module 6. Excuse me. Module 6 talks about joining. I'm taking it as two distinct pieces. Last week we talked about the inner join. And we talked about the implicit syntax and the explicit syntax. I have the PowerPoint slides. I'm going to be using them a little bit today. Sit down and bring up, I'll go through the PowerPoints as a quick review. And let's see, so about module 20 is where we, slide 20 is where we will begin today. Go quickly through these. Explicit join, pointing out that the word term inner is not required by SQL. It's for this class, we will use the word inner join, but it is not required for SQL proper. Don't have to have that. Let me go. Inner join. Inner join is mainly used for following a relationship from a primary key to the foreign key or vice versa. So it shows you records that participate in the relationship, a property of the inner join. It does not show you records that do not participate in the relationship. So it will not show you orphans. It will not show you childless parents. If I have an owner with no pets, that owner will not appear in the inner join. If I have a pet with a null owner ID, an orphan, so to speak, that one will not show up in the inner join. Questions? It's pretty straightforward. I always start with the implicit join. That was the earlier one. And then we move to the explicit join where we write the word inner join. It all amounts to pretty much the same thing. You may use either or pretty much in SQL. The inner join is still supported. The implicit syntax is still supported. Let's see. Notice that our author here does not alias the tables. I ask you to alias the tables. Let me show you where the author and I disagree. Where they've aliased the table, inner join from table 1 as in 1. I personally like to alias the tables. The reason I like to is because it saves me typing. Okay. I flatly disagree with the author in this case. I'll point with the mouse. The author is saying that this makes the query more difficult to read. I disagree. From vendors as the. I don't see anything wrong with that. And I prefer it personally. So then I don't have to type vendors again on vendors.vendor_ID equals invoices.vendor_ID. I prefer to alias the tables in the from line. And I believe I'm asking you to do that. Single letter is fine. Remember, when I design my tables, I try to keep the first letter of the tables unique if I can. I don't just do weird stuff to be able to do that, but if I can keep them unique, vendors, invoices, I will use the first letter of the table. I don't think that's difficult to read. This one is as aliasing the table as from invoice line items. Excuse me. Back here. I don't see anything wrong with this one in inner join on number 8, on slide 8. Slide 9. Okay. Slide 9 talks about fully qualified object names. Now, this becomes important when you are trying to join two tables and they are on two completely different servers. You'll have to use this idea. So, fully qualified will have the server name, the database name, the schema name, and the table. So, for example, let's look at this one. This server is named DB server. Ours is named, I believe, SQL Express dot AP. Ours is named AP underscore DB dot DBO, the schema, that means database owner, dot vendors. And again, they're saying as vendor. It is quite possible to have a table on a completely different server, and this is how you would do it. DBO, you'll see that pop up from time to time. That's what we call the schema. That means database owner. We won't be using that a whole lot in this class, more so in the next class where we are going to remote servers. Our server is still a little bit like Access, where our server is on the computer where we are. Doesn't have to be that way. It can be any place. Okay. Not going to do a whole lot with that. Let's go to 10. Same join, partially qualified. Customer name, vendor state as state. Okay, I'm not going to. This is a procedure that adds a server. I'm going to let you read about that in the text. Inner joins can have two conditions. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Here's an inner join. Now, I want you to, I'm on slide number 12 if you're following me in the PowerPoints. Select invoice number, invoice date, invoice total, line item amount from. Okay, the joins is from invoices, join, invoice line items. I want you to say inner join. If you're doing an inner join, say inner join. Okay. On invoices, invoice ID, the primary key equals the foreign key in line items. Now, I do not like what the author does now. This is not preferable. And invoices.invoice total is greater than line items.invoice line item amount. Now, this author is putting two conditions in the join. I don't care for that syntax. When I say on, I only want where the foreign key is equal to the primary key. So I'm going to stick with just that simplistic approach. I'm going to keep it just foreign key and primary key. In the next slide, the author does what I like a lot better. Notice that in slide number 13 now, we have the same query, the same join, invoices, inner join, invoice line items, on, and here we have, in the on condition, we have just the foreign key, primary key. Some people say you should put the foreign key first. Some people want to put the primary key first. With equality, it doesn't matter. On the on. Now, the rest of it, where invoice total is greater than invoice line item amount in the where clause. And that's perfectly valid in the where clause. Bringing up the idea that in the implicit syntax, we put the join condition in the where clause. So we just say from invoices, comma, invoice line items. And then the where the invoice IDs are equal goes in the where clause. In the explicit syntax, it moves up into this on condition. But that's really just a where. Okay. So there's really no difference in the two, but if we're going to do it in the on, then I want just the link. I think it makes your life simpler. You can put it either place. We're going to, I would do it like this one in slide number 13. Slide number 14 is a self-join. We've talked about that before. A table can be joined with itself. If the table is joined with itself, it must be aliased. I see no particular reason to type out vendors 1 and vendors 2. Notice that these tables are joined on something other than the primary key. They're joined where the city and state are equal. Okay, let's take a look at that one. Look at that on condition. I am in slide number 14. Okay, so I want to find vendors pairs that live in the same city. Okay, so if vendor lived in Frisco, Texas, and some other vendor in Frisco, Texas, I want to see them. Okay. Now, look at the on condition. They have to alias those two tables because they're not two tables. They're both the same table. So they have to alias them. I would have aliased them as V1 and V2. So vendors as V1, inner join vendors as V2. On v1.vendorcity is equal to v2.vendorcity, and an and condition's okay if it's really part of the join. Vendor state, v1 vendor state equals v2 vendor state, because if you live in San Diego, California, that's different from San Diego, Texas. Okay. Now, if I left it there, I'm going to see a vendor that lives in Frisco is going to join with him or herself. So I'm going to see Joe, Frisco, Texas, joins with Joe, Frisco, Texas. So they rule that out. In the third term, they say, and v1.vendor ID does not equal v2.vendor ID. That throws out the, of course, I live in the same city as I live. I'm going to be in both tables, so I will come into that join. Okay. And then the order by. Now, they did the select distinct vendors 1 vendor name. Had they not chosen distinct, what do you predict would have happened? Well, let's put it this way. AT&T is from Phoenix, Arizona, and it shares that with Computer Library in Phoenix, Arizona. I would also have seen Computer Library AT&T. So it would have worked either way. Let's see. I think your volume, somebody's, tap your microphone. Tap, tap. Okay. Yeah, your microphone's hot. That's okay. Let me see, Matthew Young, is this you? Okay, well, I got you muted here. Okay, question on the self-join. Any questions on that, on the assignment? I haven't graded all of the assignments yet, but I'm working on it. 15, quickly through it. Joining 4 tables or 5 tables or 10 tables isn't anything new. You simply follow the foreign key to the primary key. So an inner join follows the foreign key to the primary key. That's a bit of a review. And I'm going to go through these quickly. Slide 17, slide 18, slide 19. Here they talk about the implicit syntax. Most of the time when we do it here, let's use the explicit syntax, unless I specifically say the implicit. It's a good thing to know both of them. Joining implicit, joining the 4 tables, that's what we used to have to do with it. We only had that one. There's our terms. Okay, starting now with new material, the outer join. The outer join is the reason why we went to the explicit syntax. The outer join is different from the inner join in that it will return all of the records in any one table. So outer join says, I want to see all of the records in one of the tables, and I will see records that participate in the relationship. So, for example, if I wanted to find childless parents, I would say I would use an outer join. And when I say pointing at, there are 2 kinds of outer joins. There's a left outer join and a right outer join. So when I'm talking about the one, if I say left outer join, I'm talking about the table that you wrote first. So if you say from owners, left outer join pets, I'm going to see all of the owners and the pets that participate. I won't see orphaned pets, but I will see owners that have no pets. Okay. If I say right outer join, I'm talking about the table that I wrote second. So as you write from left to right, the one that would be on the right. If I say right outer join, I want all owners right outer join pets, show me all of the records in pets and just the owners that participate. Now, if I wanted to find orphaned pets, I don't need an outer join. I only have to look at the pets table, the foreign key. So usually it is used to find pets that, owners that have no pets. But what if something happened? What if I got invalid data in there somehow? What if I had a pet that had an invalid owner? That's not supposed to ever happen. This is what a foreign key is supposed to stop from happening. But stuff happens. Sometimes we will. In that case, I would use an outer join, right outer join, pointing to the pets table. So when I say pointing to the pets table, I mean right outer join. If it's from owners, right outer join pets, it's pointing to the pets table. I could also say pets left outer join owners. It would accomplish exactly the same thing. So usually, instead of specifying which one I want, I say it points to the owner's table or the pets table. Okay. If you switch it around, you have to switch left and right. I don't really need both of them. Now, back in the old days, we had a syntax for the outer join, an implicit syntax. However, it was inconsistent across database platforms, and nobody really knew how to do it. So around 1992 or so, they came up with this, came into full use in the 90s, this explicit syntax, right outer join, left outer join. And this standardizes it across platforms. pretty much for the inner join, you can use either one. For the outer join, we need to use the explicit syntax. Okay. Now, again, you can just say right join, left join, and it will work. Here we will say right outer join, left outer join. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on the full join. Left outer join. Let's see. Is this the one that I have? I'm coming from 23. Okay. Select statement that uses a left outer join. I have this one in my editor. Select vendor name, invoice number, invoice total. So this is from the PowerPoint number 23. From vendors as I will typically do, I personally like a nice terse name. If you like using verbose names, go ahead, and you didn't have to alias the table. I do want you to say left outer join. Do want to see that word outer in there, even though if you said left join, that's what you'd get. Invoices as I on vendor vendor ID equals I. So here's the join. Now notice when I run this, when I execute this query, I get a bunch of rows. Okay. Now, what am I finding here? Okay, here's the question then. The query, what does this query find? What is the purpose of this query? Okay. This is a childless parent query. Show me all of the vendors, right? It is a left outer join. Show me all vendors and the invoices that participate on vendor ID, v.vendor ID, I.vendor ID. I usually put the primary key first. If you want to do that, I suggest you adopt some kind of a method to your madness, that if you're going to put the foreign key first, then just put the foreign key first, be consistent with it. If you want to use the primary key first, go ahead. So the primary key, of course, is in vendors, and the invoices are the child. I put the vendors first, and then the child. Notice that I got a whole bunch of rows here. But if my purpose was to find unmatched childless parents, vendors with no vendor ID, then I should have put in where invoice number is null. Right? Now, if I execute this query, see if I can roll this up. No. Notice that now I have, what do I have? I have 89 vendors with no invoices. Now, if this is the case, do I really need the invoice number and invoice total in that query? I really don't. They're all going to be null. They should be null because I better not have an invoice total. If I don't have an invoice number, I shouldn't have any invoice total. I could check that. How would I change this query? Okay, let me change it. And I believe I may have put some in here. I want to change it a little bit, and I want to find any invalid invoice numbers. Do I have any invoice numbers that are invalid? Now, this is just a copy of the one above it, beginning there on line 14. How would I find invalid invoice number? An invoice that has an invalid vendor name or vendor ID. First thing, I think I would change this from vendor name. I'm not really interested in the name. I'm going to change this to vendor ID. So I want to see vendor ID. And from which table do I want the vendor ID? If it's an invalid vendor ID, which table will it be in? In the invoice table. Now, if I have aliased the table on the from line, I will use the alias on the select line. The alias on the from line usually in most database platforms shadows the original table name. So I want the one from the invoices table. Not too concerned about the number. Yes, I am concerned about the number. What about this? I want to point it at the invoices table. It's just the vocabulary I'm going to do. Right outer join invoices. Where I'm going to take this where clause out for now. And let's see what I get when I run this. I don't have a vendor name, so I better order by vendor ID. Excuse me. The nice thing about ordering by, well, let's see. He should come at the, okay. Let's go ahead and run this. And I got a bunch of results. Let's see if I have any. I should fall at the very end. I believe that one is an invalid vendor ID. Oh, okay. I know what the problem is. I'm only selecting from invoices. So I'm gonna look at the pairs. This should show me my unmatched one. I've got one in there that isn't any good, and it's the one at the very end. Notice that there is bad data in there. I knew it was in there because I put it in there. So the vendor ID 999 is an invalid vendor ID because there is no vendor named 999 or with that vendor ID. So how did I get that? I pointed the outer join at the invoices table, show me all of the invoices. But this one right here, because the vendor ID from the vendor's table is null, I know that that's my bad one. And now I can put a where clause in here. Where the dot vendor ID is null. Now this one will show me only the bad ones. I believe this is the answer to one of your exercise questions. I put that one in there just so you would have something to find. Okay, I want you to rewrite it anyway in your own. So whether you use a left join or a right join, you could have accomplished exactly the same thing by switching the order of the tables. So a left join changes to a right join if you switch the order of the tables, or vice versa. Changing the left to the right is the same thing as switching the tables. I typically do not do a lot of switching back, of going through multiple outer joins. I typically only have 2 tables in them. And because it just gets so tedious and so confusing if I try to outer join multiple tables. So I think I'm going to stick to outer joining one set of tables. We go back to my PowerPoints. PowerPoint 23. PowerPoint 24 talks about a hypothetical database. We don't have this database. We haven't created this database. But let's say, pretend we had a departments table and an employees table. And my question is, let's see, do I have any departments that have no associated employees? So clearly the foreign key here is the department number, references the primary key in the departments table. So the departments is the parent table, the child is the employees table. The question is, do I have any childless parents? No, actually, that's not what I'm asking yet. I'm going to ask that in a minute. I'm going to ask, do I have any invalid parents? But this is nice because I can just glance at this one and see that if I glance over here, I don't have any departments that are Department 3. No employees work for Department 3. I can tell, I just glanced at it, okay? But that's not really the question. The question is, if I had a million and a million and a million tables in both of those fields, how can I find them using SQL? Okay, I'm going to outer join pointing at the departments table. Okay, I like that better than saying a left outer join, because you can make it a right outer join if you want, and I'm not going to tell you one's better than the other. So I'm going to point the outer join at the departments table, and the where, because I don't want to see all of it. I have a million rows in there. I only want to see my my departments that have no associated children. Okay, so the where is going to be where the employee ID is null. So I'm going to select the department number, employee ID. I guess I'll go look at what they do. Let's see what they do on the next slide. Select department name, department number, last name from departments. So they're pointing at the departments table with a left outer join, employees, on department number. Okay. So they're using last name. That's fine. Assumably, we don't have anybody there that's valid that has a last name of null. So what we'll do is I would have used the employee ID instead of the employee's last name, and where the employee ID is null. And then that would show me that on line number 5, department number 3 has no employees. That's fine. Left outer join. Okay, left outer join. Right outer join with the same thing, departments. Now we point the join at employees, and this is going to show me the employees that have invalid department numbers. In this case, I would have put a where on it, where department name is null, because I'm not really interested in assuming that they all have to have a department name. I'm not really interested in seeing all those other rows. I'm only interested in seeing the ones that I have to fix. Okay, because this is a serious problem. A childless parent is something you might want to know. A child with an invalid parent is very important, because that is an issue for the database that you, as the database administrator, will have to fix. Questions? Making sense? Quickly. Okay, full outer join. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this. Lots of databases don't provide this, and it's not used as much. I want to see everything from both tables and all of the relationships. So notice that I can see pretty much as I read through it, I can see that operations has no children associated, and that Watson and Lociano, I guess, have invalid names. Most of the time, I am interested in one or the other. I have never used a full, yes, I have used a full outer join, but I've never used this syntax. So I am not going to put the full outer join on test 1. I'm going to ask you to do an outer join. An outer join, the purpose of an outer join is to find unmatched records. It also gives you all of the matched records, but if you put a where condition on there where that matched record is null, then it will only find the unmatched records, which is usually what you want. Questions? Please. What time are we getting to be? 40 minutes. Let's see, I believe, and now we do something different. 3 tables using, you can do outer join on multiple tables. Again, I generally don't, because it's difficult to figure out what you're trying to do. 3 tables, full join. I'm combining an outer and an inner. There may be a reason for this. Okay. What is a cross join? There are times that you would use a cross join. When you use the old implicit syntax, you are creating a cross join. So notice that this says select from departments cross join employees. It is just like putting a comma between them. A cross join says give me every possible combination, okay, whether their primary key matches or not. That is a cross join. I don't believe we have any examples in the textbook of when you would use a cross join. There may be some. I'm going to ask this on test 1. I'm going to ask that you know what the inner join does. What is an inner join for? How do you know you're calling for an inner join? Properties of an inner join. What does it give us? Parent-child relationships. You use an inner join to follow the relationship from either the primary key down to the foreign key up to the primary key. It really doesn't make any difference because it's equality. Records that do not participate in the relationship are not returned by an inner join. When you write it, I want you to say inner join. Don't just say join, please. I also would like it if when you, from the tables, you would alias the tables in a nice terse manner. Terse means vendors as V. I like that. I guess that's just how I learned to do it. So it sounds normal to me. Okay. So with an inner join, it doesn't matter what order you put the tables in. I usually choose to put the primary key first, but I'm not saying you have to. The parent table first, followed by the child table, then keep going down like that. They can be in any order as long as you link the parent table to the child table. Parent and child can come in any order. Okay. When I have 3 tables, I start with my highest level parent, linked to the child. Then that child usually becomes the parent of a 3rd table. That way I know as I read left to right, I'm reading down in the hierarchy. But it doesn't matter as long as you get them in there because it's just equality. Okay, next one, the outer join. What does the outer join give you? There's 2 kinds of outer joins. And let's just use, I'm going to use a 2-table outer join for the test. 2 tables. What does it give us? What's the important thing? All the records from the table to which it points. If it is a left outer join, it points to the first table that you wrote. If it is a right outer join, it points to the second table that you typed. Okay? Gives you all of the records in that table, whether they are matched or not. And, unless you specify otherwise, all of the records that do participate in the relationship. Fair enough? Now, you can filter out. I usually put the filter in the where condition, where the unmatched table is null. A field from the unmatched table that is required is null. I like to work on the primary keys. So if, let's say, for example, I want to find owners with no pets, okay, I'm going to point the outer join at the owners table. I'll just say that first, owners left outer join pets on owners.owner ID is equal to pets.owner ID. Okay. Some people will say and pets.owner ID is null. I don't care for that. I like where pets.owner ID is null. I prefer to have the on condition being only the join. I like to keep that simple. But I can do it in the where also. So the on is really part of the where when you get right down to it. Okay, questions? I'm not going to ask you about a cross join. I'm not going to ask you about a full outer join. I have assigned the practice test. The practice test is due on Wednesday at 12 o'clock noon. Okay, and you can see it there. The practice test is not worth a whole lot. It's just a few points. Well, it's 5 points. Also, I ask you to participate in the discussion, and you get some nominal credit for it. In general, I'm not going to grade the practice test real hard. Okay, take it seriously. If you don't take it, I'm going to glance at it and make sure you actually did it. It's okay to discuss it. It's okay to say, hey, anybody know how to do this one? Put it on the discussion board if you want to. Perfectly legal. Okay, discussing it. You're going to get full credit for it if you actually do it. That's basically what I'm going to look at. Did you do it? If you did it, you get your 5 points, whatever it is. It is due on Wednesday at noon. It cuts off on Wednesday at noon. Then I will release the solutions. And so you can see if your solutions agree with mine. Mine are not gospel. Yours might be different from mine, and you might still have a correct answer. Okay. Let's see, who's going to be available and wants to check it Wednesday at noon? Who will access it Wednesday shortly after noon? Who won't be at work on Wednesday shortly after noon? Can you send me a message? You can send me a message through Canvas that says you can see it. Kind of like wearing the headset. I'm just sometimes things when it's important that one get there because I want to give. We're giving the test on Friday, and I don't want the. I have had the experience where, but we can't see it because it's in a module that's hidden or something like that. It's in a locked module, so I unlock the test, but the test is in a locked file. That's embarrassing. It isn't so bad if I'm right there and know it. I can usually get to it and fix it, but if I don't know it. So somebody send me a message that says, okay, send me a message through Canvas messaging that says, yeah, we can see it and everything's cool. We can read it. Okay. Well, that's the question. Is the actual test in class? This is a face-to-face class. Therefore, I have to be here for the face-to-face test. However, I am treating kind of both classes as hybrid, meaning it has a face-to-face part, which is this Zoom recording, and a online part. So as you can see, let's see, what have I got here? 3, 8. Well, I think I've got most everybody who actually signed up for this class still here. I think I've got one or two people that are signed up for the face-to-face class that are online. That's okay. I told them I'd support that because I only had 8 people signed up for this class and it was about to get canceled. So I pulled over a few people from from the online and said, hey, sign up for this one. So I'm going to make the test available online. I'm going to impose a 2-hour time limit. So no, you do not have to come to class. The test will become available. I think I will make it come available Friday morning. I'll turn it on. When you access the test, you will have 2 hours to complete it. Now, I'm not going to make it shut off at 2 hours. I'm just simply going to record the time that you accessed the test, and you have 2 hours to complete it. Okay. Now, if you're at 2 hours and 1 minute uploading, it's not going to shut off. But you will be, if you're over 2 hours from the time you access it until the time you send it to me, I will know it, and I will get even. Next Friday will be just the test. You may come to this room. I will be here in this room. Okay. If you have any questions for me, then you may come talk to me first. Then you will still have time to access the test and complete the test here. You can do it at 4 o'clock if you want to. I will probably cut the test off. I need to get some feedback from the online people, but I'll get, there'll be a cutoff time on the test, but I want to make sure I give them plenty of time to access it. They'll still have the 2-hour window. So the online people will have to complete the test within 2 hours, whether you complete it at home or here. Okay. From the time you access the test to the time you turn it in has to be 2 hours, or cannot exceed 2 hours. Wouldn't be a bad idea if you did it here. So I don't know exactly when I'm going to put the cutoff on the test. I might run into Saturday a little bit with it. I'll give you the same. Basically, I'm treating the two classes as parallel. So I'm treating the two classes the same way. You just choose to be here today. They could be here today if they wanted to. If not, they get to hear me on the channel. Questions? Okay, we're going to take a break now. It is 10:50, so we're going to take a short break. I'm going to cover a couple of other points, and then we should wrap up fairly early today. Thus, I'm ending part 1